G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. The round reviews are back for 2024. A lot of people enjoyed these videos last year. Just me chewing the fat about the footy each week. It's always something I love doing on this channel, and we're going to be bringing it back, of course, for this season. It was called the good, bad and ugly last year, but I never really followed that principle of discussing a good, bad and ugly for each game. So I'm just going to scrap it and call it a round review for each week, because that's just how I like to do things on the channel, of course. Opening round, just finished. Just finished streaming GWS in Collingwood. It was a statement made, and that's going to be the title of this video. Statements were made in opening round, and of course, if you want to look at it more of a negative point of view, well, I'm not the voice of the people. Certainly people are against opening round, given the low quality footy we saw on Thursday night for the most part, and yeah, just not really too much hype compared to starting a game at the MCG under 100,000 people of Carlton and, of course, of Richmond. But, you know, it was still a joy to watch with the footy. We saw some terrific teams get some really solid wins, and there's plenty to discuss. So we'll just go over each game, discuss my thoughts, and I'm also wanting to implement a my best players 3-2-1 sort of system into these videos. And hey, I could call it a medal, like the Rolls Macca medal, and start my own little Brownlow system on the video. So let's get into it, shall we? Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy. Let's get started. So as a Swan supporter, and I'm usually quite an unbiased person, I think we can all agree is name a better way to kick off a season with a Swans masterclass. Okay, I'll shut up. But it was a terrific performance from the Swannies on Thursday night. In the end, getting the win over Melbourne. Again, the same old problems for the D's by 22 points at the SCG. Game was really in the balance for the first half. I thought Melbourne around the footy were, well, with the strengths of the full-strength midfield was on show, and with the outs Sydney had with no Parker, no Mills, no Adams, you felt, well, Melbourne are starting to get on top of the footy here, but they were just so inaccurate with their inside 50s. They were winning the count throughout stage of that first half. They were smacking the Swans in contested possession and clearances. They were getting plenty of entries, but just, again, the high bombs to the pocket. We saw plenty of that from Melbourne, and especially just even the shots in front of goal. Like, they were actually having a few good opportunities inside 50, and then they just kicked terribly in front of goal. I think at half time, or quarter time, sorry, it was 1-6, and at one point it was 1-8, and they finally got that goal in that second quarter after the siren through Ed Langdon. But yeah, first half was really in the balance between these two sides. The intensity was high, and it was a really dewy game, so the conditions, it was struggling, and both teams were struggling to have really clean possessions here or there. But yeah, it was a really high heated first half. We saw players like 𝐼𝐴𝐴𝐿𝐴 𝐻𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐿𝐴 get some early goals. The Swans, like they're so good at doing, they're just able to get those goals against the grain, where sometimes their defensive 50 is repelling inside 50 entries down there, and they can get a quick goal through transition out the back, and a player like 𝐻𝐿𝐴 outside 50 can skid one home through. That's really how they got their scores pretty much in the first half. And when streaming the game, very low scoring, 27-20 half time. I just said whilst live streaming this game, I know for a fact this will really open up. Because it always does with these low-scoring games. And the goals started to come. It was a bit of a goal-for-goal affair. Where the game really changed as well, Melbourne looked like probably the better side in the first half, because they were getting on top around the footy. They had the more inside 50s, I'm pretty sure. But where the Swans got on top, they got to work in the second half around the footy. This was a rare sight to see last year, because the Swans were bottom 4 for clearances and contested possessions. They turned that game on its head. From the start of the second half onwards, they started to get the game on their terms and start to win it at the source, started to win it in and under. In the end, it was a 5-goal straight to 3-goal 7 third term. So Swans were doing everything right. They were so composed in their back half as well. That's another reason why they won the game. They defend really well as a back six, the Swans, and they showed that again. And they were plus 15 contested possessions, and then that fourth term, they just went bang. And this was a very rare sight to see for Sydney last year. When leading at three-quarter time, for 17 games, they only ended up winning 11. So, heading into the fourth term as a Swan supporter, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to drop this one. If this game was last year, you just felt the Swans would drop it, but the scoreboard pressure they put on, Chad Warner was struggling, but then he kicked that massive goal to open the floodgates in the fourth term, and then all of a sudden he just found plenty of the footy. Sydney just built that momentum of winning clearance after clearance, getting in their forward half, just winning it at ground level. They had so many forward half winners. Wicks was great. Hayward was brilliant as well. Very efficient. Robbie Fox poking one through and McDonald kicking the winner. So I guess the best way to look at it is from that second half onwards, what the Swans were able to do against a full-strength Melbourne midfield and just really be able to win it in the coalface, win contest possession, win clearance. Brodie Grundy was sensational as well on Thursday night as well. He was just able to beat out Gawn so well in the air. Like, he just knew how to play against him. He would just block him off and not allow him to jump. He was terrific. 𝐼𝐴𝐸𝐞𝐬 for me was the best player on ground. He gets my 3 votes. He moved as a predominant midfielder. I actually backed in 𝐴𝐸𝐸 to be best on ground tonight just because he's always good as a full-time midfielder. He was great against Carlton last year when he played on 𝐓𝐴𝐸𝐸. 26 disposals and a goal for him. Grundy is going to get my 2 votes, and then my 3, and then for my 1 vote, I'm going with 𝐦𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐸. Just so good. He's just terrific in the air, and he was just so fun to watch with ball in hand. He just cut angles, and he had some great kicks inside 50. But yeah, it was a tale of really 2 halves. It was close and tight and scrappy in that first half, but the Swans, with their classiness and their ability to win the footy, they broke free with better ball use, picked apart their targets much better than Melbourne inside 50, and won the game in the end pretty convincingly by 22 points. And then, yeah, for Melbourne, I think they'll lick their wounds. They were without Harry Petty and 𝐓𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐸 and also Shane McAdam, who's probably best 22. So they did have a number of those outs forward of centre, but still a full-strength Melbourne midfield against the outs of Sydney. You have to say you are pretty disappointed, but 𝑣Iney was fantastic with 30 touches and 2 goals, but just not enough. And I think really throughout the whole game, again, their inside 50 entries were poor. They barely cut angles when going inside 50 either. So yeah, there's plenty to learn for Melbourne, but they're just never good. They're never really good in those hot and humid conditions, like up in Darwin, and they're not great in the wet. So they'll lick their wounds for sure, but the Swans just too good. They played to the conditions terrifically and got a solid win by 22 points. So my best on 𝐼𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸 with 3 votes, Grundy with 2, and 𝐦𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 with 1 vote. We now move on to the Friday night game, and what a match this was. No one was expecting this. When the Brisbane Lions, well, that first half was pretty expected. Probably not that expected. I mean, we certainly weren't expecting Carlton to really fall on their face like that. It was a dismal first half from them. But for the Lions to be up as high as 46 points halfway through the second quarter and thinking, okay, well, this is a typical Brisbane 𝐓𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸 masterclass, for them to just completely go into their shells, and what a comeback from Carlton. They rise from the dead and win by 1 point. And some players from that Carlton side, like Harry McKay, who has just been under the pump throughout the preseason with the pressure issues and just the issues kicking in front of goal, for him to come out and kick 3 goals 1 was an absolute treat to watch for Blues fans, and even myself. It was a great sight to see. But yeah, this game had certainly a lot of uglies as well, including of the comeback, which was a nightmare for Brisbane supporters. Unfortunately, 2 ACL injuries came out with this: Sam Doherty going down and Kitty Coleman. Best wishes go up to those 2 players. You just hate to see that. It was terrible to see. But with the game alone, comeback was terrific from Carlton. But we'll talk about the first half a little bit, because it was a game of 2 halves. Brisbane kicked off the game like a house on fire. It was just their strengths at any normal 𝐓𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸 home game for the Brisbane Lions. Off the turnover, they were terrific, and they were so clean in the coalface. They started off so well and just being able to get quick first possession, get it out to a teammate and generate it forward and get the goals out the back. The midfield for the Blues to kick off were terrible. 𝐓𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 and 𝐻ERA and a few of those types, Hewitt as well, they just weren't tough enough around the coalface. And like, the Brisbane were just applying so much intense heat around the footy. Their intensity was brilliant to start off the game. 𝐸𝐴𝐸𝐸 was really good in that first term, and Dunkley was terrific in applying the pressure. So yeah, the Blues were really, they were just entering into their shells, and we thought this could really get ugly. It was 44-12 at quarter time. But interestingly, throughout the whole first half, Carlton were actually still winning the contested possession count. It was just, though, defensively. With no Wiedering, we all expected them to struggle, and that's exactly what we saw. Lewis Young was struggling to kick off the games. I mean, in the end, 𝐓𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸 and 𝐷aniher were disappointing, but they still were posing as threats up forward. But, the likes of Dane 𝐸𝐸𝐸 with the goals early on. 𝐼𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 was terrific in that first half as well. Charlie Cameron getting on the board early on as well. And it was just a whole collective effort. Like, they looked really good from their back half. They were composed. And probably a little bit too composed in the end, because then all of a sudden that second half, the tables turn, and I think there's some complacency kicked in for Brisbane, because they were so tough at the footy, and they were just outnumbering the Blues at the contest every single time and getting it inside 50. They had winners at ground level. Their pressure was elite, and they were just forcing mistakes in that Carlton defence. They were kicking very well too. like 7 goals 2 to 9 goals 5. They kicked a few points in a row. Charlie Cameron had some great chances to extend their lead, but then you saw the goal from Cunningham on the run. And this was probably the turning point in the game. All of a sudden, the Blues, well, as I said just then, or just before, they were winning the contested possession count. So they were still in this game. They were starting to really win those 50-50s more, and they were starting to generate more inside 50s and have more opportunities. And then a goal to 𝐼𝐶 to make it 28-59 at half-time. And look, probably at this point you still felt Brisbane were in control, but the last 10 minutes of that second term, the Blues were starting to take over a little bit. They had a little bit of that momentum, and then all of a sudden they kick, I'm pretty sure it was around 8 unanswered goals or 7 unanswered goals. 𝐼𝐶 kicked 2 quick goals in a minute, and then all of a sudden the Blues, with that comeback, they just started to really lift around the footy. This was non-existent in the first term. You saw 𝐓𝐿, you saw 𝐼𝐶𝐞. His third quarter was absolutely fantastic. 𝐼𝐶𝐿 as well, in the coalface. They were starting to win it more. They were whacking it forward, and their pressure in their forward half was brilliant. Forgot to mention, but also Jack Currell coming on as the sub, the highest rated player in the third term. He was huge in that Carlton midfield in the turnaround. When they were going inside 50 in the first term, you know, it was just constantly getting picked apart by like Harris Andrews and everything. Their ball use was terrible, but then all of a sudden they forced the ground more. 𝐷𝐷𝐿𝐼𝐶𝐞 was my unsung hero of the night. His pressure was elite. They just won it more at ground level in the half forward, and they're able to just quickly generate off the turnover and kick some good quality goals. For them to hit the front through 𝐓𝐡𝐞, I'm pretty sure it was, to be up by a point at 3/4 time. And yeah, all of a sudden now the game was really back square. But you still felt like Carlton had the edge around the footy. Brisbane were mentally shot, it felt. They weren't moving the footy like they were in the first term. They became a lot more timid, and just the fumbles. The fumbles from that Carlton pressure became more of a visible thing as the game did wore on. And in the fourth quarter, I mean, Brisbane had plenty of inside 50s. They ended up winning the inside 50 count. Let me just bring this up whilst it's load. Yeah, 62-49 inside 50. So Brisbane still had their fair share of opportunities whilst Carlton were coming back and whilst they were showing some of their dominance. It's just really scrappy stuff from Brisbane, but I think that's credit to Carlton's defence really tightening up. Lewis Young was terrific as the game did wear on. And yeah, just around the footy, they became tougher. They won more stoppages like they are very good at, Carlton. And, well, in the end, when we look at it from how they scored, they either were very good off the turnover, but when they were going inside 50, they were bombing it in long quite a bit, the Blues. So it's pretty predictable, but they just were able to get so many contested marks through Harry McKay. And for me, that's why he's my best on ground, because he was huge, taking those contested clunks and obviously kicking 3 goals in the end. 3 to Harry McKay. 2 votes to Paddy Cripps. He really lifted around the footy. And also for my final vote, I'm also going to be giving it to Adam Cerra. He was also really clean around the coalface too. He started to ruck it up in that second half. But an unsung hero, I do want to shout out 𝐷𝐷𝐿𝐼𝐶𝐞. He was huge in their forward half. But yeah, forward half pressure really lifted. Their turnover game was great. Stoppage game really improved. And yeah, they were just playing to their strengths, while Brisbane went into their shells. And again, in the end, with those stats in their favour, like the inside 50s, they really should have won the game. But the Blues, historic win at the 𝐵𝐵𝐿, their first since 2013, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, great win for the Blues. And now for the Saturday games, first one, Gold Coast getting the win over the Tigers by 39 points. What a way for Damien Hardwick to kick off his Gold Coast campaign with a strong win over his former side. And, well, this was a bit of deja vu in that second half. You know, Richmond were able to kick 8 goals unanswered in a row, and we felt, oh no, is this going to be a comeback like the night before? But I guess now we can safely say the damage was done in the first half. And where and how it was done was just the bullying in that midfield. 𝐼𝐴, Anderson, Miller, Flanders, these are all highly rated players, and they were a top 4 clearance side from last year, so they were able to use those strengths and really shell shock Richmond around the footy. The same issues from last year from the Tigers in that first half became apparent again. Their ball use was really shaky. They were struggling to get it inside 50 at all. They were getting battered around the footy, and Gold Coast were just moving it freely. I mean, they were so comfortable as a back 6. Like, 𝐼𝐴 was fantastic throughout the whole day, and Ballard and Collins are holding down their opponents terrifically well, but it was just an absolute bloodbath. Dominating in inside 50s as well. I think the marks inside 50 was something like 6 to like about 15 to 1 throughout the second term. Just dominant in that first half. So yeah, in the end at half time, 74 to 13, and it could have been 74 to 7. Given they did get that goal late through Seth Campbell, and I want to give a shout out to him. He looks like a neat young forward. His first game, he ended up kicking 2 goals, I'm pretty sure. Changes definitely needed to be made for the Tigers heading into the second half under Adam 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴. They needed to do something because they were getting smacked. Naismith was getting destroyed by 𝗏𝐻𝐿𝐴. So what happened is 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 moved Noel Bolter into the midfield instead of him staying at forward. Also, the goal kicking and ball use inside 50 was quite poor when they had the opportunity. So Bolter, with his athleticism, went to the midfield, and things started to change. They started to get really, quite simply, they started to show more intensity around the footy. They were getting smacked in that area, but just the Richmond style started to kick in. They showed more 1%ers. They showed more fight at ground level, and they started to just generate it more and more inside 50. And it was a credit to their goal kicking as well, because it was 2 goals 1 to 8 goal 3 at 3/4 time. So they were kicking very accurately. It was 6 goals too. Basically every shot at goal was going right through the middle. Gold Coast lost their touch of being able to win it convincingly out of the middle. They did really well in the clearance game in the end, Gold Coast, but Richmond was starting to beat them at their own game throughout that third period. In the end, Gold Coast were just able to really keep them at arm's length, because again, as I say, that midfield started to respond a little bit more. They were able to respond with a few goals back, and their defence in the end did really well, whilst they were getting under siege with a lot more inside 50 entries. As I say again, 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 was absolutely fantastic in my eyes. His intercepting game was terrific. He was one of the best out there. Pretty much in that fourth term, Gold Coast able to keep them at arm's length. They got on top a bit more in that in the final term in that midfield, and kicked away, ending up winning that final term. I'm pretty sure. Yep, they ended up winning the final term in the end. So convincing win still for Gold Coast. It felt like it was much closer given the comeback from the Tigers, but still 39 points. Talking about the individuals, Matt Rowell was key in their midfield. 20 clearances, the most out of any player since 1999. He was a treat to watch. 𝐓𝐿𝐴 Miller played a bit forward also in the midfield. They worked collectively as a midfield group so well. The clearance and stoppage game was a treat to watch. So it was a respectable comeback by Richmond, but no Dustin Martin, no Tom Lynch was definitely going to hurt them, and obviously no 𝗏𝐿𝐴. Usually, pushes his weight around in the ruck, where Naismith was unable to. 𝗏𝐻𝐿𝐴 bullied him for the most part. Just so many good plays for Gold Coast throughout the day. But Matt Rowell for sure will get my 3 votes. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 was sensational in the air. With his intercepting game, I'll give him the 2 votes. And then for my 1 vote, got to be including Ben King. He brought his shooting boots. He had a terrific game on 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐴, kicking 5 goals 1. We all thought the tables would turn with the Tigers coming back, with them just being able to beat them at their own game around the footy. The defence held up, and in the end, their midfield was too good. And forward 50 injuries were really nice as well. They just were so clean, getting possession in their forward 50 and kicking some lovely goals. Malcolm Rosas also with 3 goals as well. So a great way for the Suns to kick off their season with a 39-point victory. And for the final game of the round, just finished streaming this game. No one was expecting a margin like this. A convincing win in the end from GWS over the Collingwood Football Club, the reigning premiers, by 32 points. And as they say, good kicking is good footy. That's the best way to look at this game. The GWS's forward half efficiency won them the game. It was simple as that. The first half was quite dead even. Both teams were showing really good intensity around the footy. It was going back and forth. There was a bit of goal for goal. The Pies were getting their fair share of inside 50s, and look, in the end, they had more inside 50s, and they also had more scoring shots. So, for me, in the end, it was just simply efficiency that it came down to on who was going to win this game. And I did say that in my tipping video, because these two sides very, very even in many areas. With no 𝐻𝐿𝐴, it was going to be a struggle for them defensively tonight. And we saw early on with a few of those Giants goals, they're able to get them from transition, a bit of sloppy defence from the out the back defending from Collingwood. It really tightened up throughout that second term, and Collingwood were getting their fair share of forward half usage and time in forward half and inside 50 entries. But just very, very predictable ball movement from Collingwood, pretty much in general, but the first half specifically, and also that second term, just long bombing it inside 50. They barely lowered their eyes. They were getting no service from those key forwards. Ash Johnson was one of the worst players out on the ground tonight, and Mason Cox was terrible too. He was barely getting any ability to take a mark, so they weren't getting much. So I mean, another way to look at why the Giants won so well was their defence. They worked so well as a back six, and you need to do that against Collingwood because they've got so many options that can just kill you. You know, 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐷 or Bobby Hill or something. But Jack Buckley, Connor Idun, you know, especially Buckley and also Sam Taylor were terrific in the air. They were swallowing inside 50s throughout periods of that first half, but they were able to rebound it out of there so well, and they just let their transition and their ball movement do the talking. Much more efficient in their forward half. They were able to really get goals against the grain, and that trend continued in the third term. Collingwood were getting inside 50s. They were able to win the footy hero there. Then an intercept would happen, and then a few hand passes would happen, and then a goal from a turnover. And then, yeah, GWS were just able to continue to kick away whilst the Pies kept on knocking on the door with a few inside 50s. They defend well. They move the footy well. It was just a brilliant win from GWS. And also, just they were really, really efficient from centre clearances. They got a lot of goals from winning it out of the middle, hitting up a target inside 50, winning at a ground level, bombing it in there and getting a goal. And this is what I said about the Giants heading into this season, my season predictions video. Their role players are some of the best in the comp. You know, they're such a tight-knit group with just so many options that can play really, really good footy hero there. I mean, Callum Brown with 5 goals. He was amazing. He kicked 4, I'm pretty sure, in the first half. There was just so many options inside 50 for GWS, and they lowered their eyes well. They moved it terrifically well. Hogan kicked 4. His set shots were terrific tonight. And Brent Daniels, I mean, he was just bombing up everywhere in their forward half. It'd go inside 50. The Pies defenders would struggle to get it out because Daniels was always there, hand passing, and just efficient goal kicking as well in the end. I mean, 18 goals, 16, 11 goals, 16. It was always going to favour GWS with more accurate goal kicking. But yeah, the game was definitely in the balance the first half, but it really broke open in the second half with just more efficient ball movement from GWS. They were efficient off the stoppage. They really beat the Pies in that area as the game wore on, and they just chipped away at that margin. You know, it just got bigger and bigger, and in the end, it was just a dominant display in the end. And yeah, really disappointing night from Collingwood though. As I said again, not really much good usage inside 50. 𝐷𝐿𝐼, I felt, was quite 21 touches. He's usually that player that can really change a game. They just didn't really have many of those forward half winners. And also where the Pies are very good usually is their ability to move the footy end to end, break it from a scrimmage or break it from congestion, quickly get it forward. But there were just too many fumbles, or there'd be a Giants defender in the way blocking that exit. So yeah, credit to GWS. Their defence was terrific. They really beat the Pies in many areas tonight. I think the blueprint is you don't allow the Pies to intercept. You defend well as a back six, and you just get them off the turnover, and you just get him while they're napping. That's what the Giants did so well tonight. Looking at the individuals, Lachie Whitfield racked it up with 33 touches. Josh Kelly, their midfield collectively as a unit was terrific tonight. GWS, Josh Kelly 32, Green with 30, 𝐸𝐿𝐼 with 28. As I say again, their back half's brilliant. Lachie Ash roaming off half back with 25. And for my best players, the 3 votes for me will go to Tom Green. He was the best midfield I felt out there. Kelly was terrific too, as I'll be giving him my 2 votes. And for the 1 vote, look, it could be Callum Brown, it could be Jesse Hogan, it could be Daniels. Out of those 3, I'm giving it out to Brent Daniels. So clean in the forward half. He was just bobbing up. The pressure he was applying was elite. He was just winning those 50-50s. Kicked some lovely goals too, so he gets my 1 vote to round it out. But yeah, statement made from GWS. For the Pies, they'll definitely lick their wounds. They've got the flag unfurling next week. But yeah, really good win from GWS. Efficient in their forward half. The best way to sum up the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is the round review for the opening round for 2024. This has been going for quite a while, almost 30 minutes, just talking about 4 games. But there's just so much to talk about with these 4 games of football. I just love what I saw throughout really the whole of the opening round. Again, people are against it, but the quality of footy we saw from the winners especially was terrific to see. We saw some almost comebacks. We did also see some comebacks, but yeah, certainly some statements were made from all 4 of the winners across the weekend. So hopefully you did enjoy, everyone. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you did think of my thoughts. The tips, of course, will be out next week, and also my Supercoach and fantasy team reveals will also be out next week. So yeah, so hopefully you did enjoy the video today. Make sure to leave a like for more of these types of videos, and until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.